All right, welcome and good evening, everyone, to Adopt for Life's Facebook Live event. Get to know your nervous system the polyvagal way. Tonight, Tanya Eichler will be leading us through her presentation and workshop so we can better understand our nervous system, how it responds to stress, and how we as parents and caregivers can learn how to work with our nervous system to feel calmer, faster. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Chantal. I'm part of the Adopt for Life team, and I'm so pleased to be sharing this space with Tanya tonight. I'm going to be the facilitator for the webinar. So essentially, if you have any questions, you just pop them in the comment in the chat box below, whether it's a technical issue for sound or visuals. I did tell my kids to get off the internet, so hopefully they listen to me. If you have any questions about the actual content of the webinar, just put them in the chat as they come up. And we are going to be saving time at the end, like the last 10 minutes or so, to answer your questions. So, so just put them in there and we'll get to them at the end. If you are putting questions in or any kind of comments, which we appreciate, just a little reminder that this is a live stream on Adopt for Life's public Facebook page. So whatever you're putting in the chat is publicly available. So you just want to be mindful about not including any identifying information if you're asking any questions about your children. So before we begin, I would like for us to pause and acknowledge the lands that we are all situated on today. Myself, I reside on unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, which is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We do the land acknowledgement to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations, and as a first step towards understanding or improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures, and to recognize and acknowledge the historic and ongoing devastating effects of colonialism and racism in the name of assimilation across Canada. And to consider how we are and can each in our own way action forward in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tanya, because she's got the presentation and she's got the goods.
Power.
So welcome, Tanya. Thanks so much. And I'm looking forward to it.
It's really funny giving someone like me power over anything technical. But anyway, we're going to see.
Here is your backup. So
yeah, we're going to see if I can remember how to share a screen and everything. So here goes. There, share. It's always so exciting when these things work. And anytime I do any kind of presentation, the first few minutes I'm always nervous. And so you're going to hear me probably talking a little quickly, and I'm going to try to slow myself down and get myself calm. But that's just how my nervous system works. So yeah, this is polyvagal theory is something that I've kind of learned about and fallen in love with. And I find it really, really helpful. So hopefully I can help you catch a little bit of that tonight. And let's see how it goes. So a little bit about me. I'm a private practitioner. I'm a therapist. And I've got to move little boxes so I can see what I've got. I'm still not completely used to doing this online and not in person. I miss in person still quite badly. But this means a lot of people from a long way can see it, and that's great. Anyway, my private practice, I specialize in FASD, so fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, early childhood trauma, adoption, and attachment. I've been hired recently with Adopt for Life for the new AFCA Family Support Program, which is super exciting. And AFCA stands for aggression toward family and caregivers in childhood and adolescence. So we have a new thing that we're starting, and you can read more about it on the Adopt for Life website. I helped start the Fetal Alcohol Resource Program in Ottawa with some of the team members who are now working with me with the AFCA program, which is awesome. And in years ago, I worked for quite a while in British Columbia as a key worker in FASD. So that's where I really got to know a lot about lots of different brain, nervous system things. And that kind of has led me to this place now. So why do I think polyvagal theory matters? And what do I like about it? I'm not the kind of person who does really great with sciencey stuff, but I know it matters. So I love any kind of theory that can simplify sciencey stuff so that I can understand it and can communicate it to people that I work with. And I find polyvagal is just a beautiful simplification of an incredibly complex process that happens in our body. So it's really describing what they call the autonomic nervous system. Now, again, that's one of the things I don't like. We have an autonomic nervous system and a sympathetic and parasympathetic, and I find all of those terms get really complicated for me. So this is, again, going to make this really simple and kind of bite-sized and usable in your own life. So the autonomic nervous system is the part of our nervous system that runs things without us needing to be aware. So it runs our heart rate, it runs our temperature, all of those sorts of things, runs a number of different things, our reactions, nervous system reactions. Polyvagal theory gives us this great way of getting to know and respect and work with our nervous system. So that's what I like about it, is the nervous system is doing its stuff. It's going to do it if you know about it or not. But what this is it helps us really know personally what's happening in my nervous system. And it gives us a little more control and way of managing what's happening, so that our nervous system doesn't run us, we can work with it. And I think one of the things that we've all learned through this whole COVID experience is that stress has a huge effect on our behavior, on our relationships, and on our health. So what I love the most is polyvagal theory gives us this individualized, it's respecting each individual nervous system, and it gives you tools for understanding and recovering from stress. So the background, the people who came up with this stuff, I have to give them credit. So this is not something that I came up with at all. I'm just interpreting it for you, but this is all stuff other people did the work to study. Dr. Stephen Porges is the first person. He is, I wrote a little bit of notes down because of this. He is an American psychiatrist and a neuroscientist, and he's a trauma specialist. And he started studying the vagus nerve system. And that's the nerve system that goes from our heart to our brain and through all the way down to our digestive system. And that was, and he's the really sciencey guy about this stuff. He's done a lot of research and he's the sciencey guy. Deb Dana, she's amazing. She's a clinician and she's a consultant. And she's the person that kind of took what he's done and worked with him. And she created this language that makes it really approachable. So I did training with Deb Dana, and I've read a number of her books, and that's how I've gotten this knowledge. So she created something called the polyvagal ladder, and I'll show you what that's all about. But it's just, again, she just made it a lot simpler. So a bit more of the background. This is a picture of technically our polyvagal nervous system. It's a nerve system, and if you're watching this on a phone, you're not going to be able to see it very well, and that's okay. But these are nerves that come, again, from our heart up to our brain. There's two big nerves that go along the side of our spinal column, and then there's another set of nerves that go from our heart down through our diaphragm and into our digestive system. So those are the three nerve pathways that we're going to pay attention to. There's a couple of other really important factors that are part of the polyvagal theory. One of the big ones is called neuroception. So neuroception is the idea that when I walk into a room, my nervous system is going to read your nervous system without me being aware of it. Actually, I can tell you a story. Years ago, I had something called Graves' disease. And Graves' disease is a thyroid disorder. And when I was something called hyperthyroid, and it causes a nervous system reaction. My heart rate went super high, and I was basically a walking panic attack for about 4 months until it was treated. I remember I was also doing my master's and I was doing my practicum, and I had a practicum group, and I remember very specifically walking into the group and I could feel the group nervous systems all react to me, because I was in it's the coolest thing, because if you think about it, what's happening is I'm giving off signal of danger because I'm stressed, right? Stress means danger in some way. And all of those other nervous systems, I would walk in the room, those other nervous systems, because those are attuned people, would read my stress, and they would come up and react to and look for the danger too. The reality is, this is about our nervous systems trying to protect us, which is an amazing thing. So neuroception is that piece of, I'm not paying attention, but my nervous system is trying to read the room and figure out, am I safe or in danger? Nervous systems can also calm each other. And this is the concept of co-regulation. So if I'm calm, so I'm a therapist, and when you walk into my therapy room, you need to feel my calm, and hopefully you can catch some of my calm. And I can co-regulate you so that you can feel better in my room and be able to process more stuff and do some healing. That's a really important concept for parenting. It's a really important concept for any relationship. My husband, if I'm stressed out and I come close to my husband, I can feel my nervous system calm, which is a pretty wonderful thing. We all need to have people in our lives that can co-regulate with us. The other thing that's an important concept, and this I'm going to get more into, it's kind of more the polyvagal ladder piece, is our nervous system is formed in order. There's a hierarchy. So when we're formed, when we're growing, before we're born, the bottom part of the bottom part of a system forms first, then the middle part, then the top part. Evolutionary wise, that's how it happened. And so there's a real hierarchy as to how this all works. But the thing to remember the most is stress is okay. We can't avoid it, and our nervous system is constantly working to protect us. And actually, a little extra thing is, everyone's nervous system grew in unique ways through unique circumstances and learned what danger and safety was differently. So that's why every nervous system is unique. So this is really the meat of the whole thing. The ladder is what I teach about. It's kind of how we have different activities. When I do polyvagal work with people, there's different activities, and it's about getting to know what your system is like on the 3 stages. So I'm going to quickly do these, and then I'm going to pull them apart a little more. So the top stage is and it's the top part of the nervous system. It's when we're safe, social, and engaged. That would be when we can actually use our cortex and we can think. If we're not safe, our cortex, when I'm working with kids, I call it our Corey brain. Our cortex shuts down quite a bit. If you think about it, when you're stressed, you can't do good learning, you can't do good imagining, you can't do good planning. You're just kind of reacting. So when you're safe, you can do all of those things, organizing, planning. That's when your cortex is actually working. The attitude, I like how it says, is I'm feeling at ease. I can manage whatever comes my way. I feel empowered and connected. I see the big picture and connect to the world and people in it. So that's kind of what that safe feeling is. Now, if we feel danger, if the danger comes our way, the first response is sympathetic. It's an activation. It's an energy. Your heart rate goes up. It's mobilized, agitated, frantic even. And the attitude is, I'm getting overwhelmed and I'm having a hard time keeping up. I feel anxious and irritated. The world seems dangerous, chaotic, unfriendly, right? And it can be bigger or smaller, but it's still a sympathetic response. And there's the important part about the way that one feels is that mobilized energy. There's energy to being stressed. Now, when we have too much stress, or too much stress all of a sudden, or too much stress over time, we get what we call dorsal vagal activated. So that's that bottom part of the system. That's the part that goes into our gut. It's the part that makes us feel sick when we get too stressed. It's the part that might give people diarrhea when they get too stressed. All of that can be activated because we're operating more primarily out of our dorsal vagal system. That's when people get numb and shut down. I saw a lot of that, a lot more of that over COVID. It's fascinating because I learned this stuff during COVID, I was starting it before COVID started. And you could see it as each different shutdown happened. You could see people be stressed, but as they got further and further, you saw more people collapsing and just shutting down and not able to function well. And it was really fascinating to see how collectively, and again, remember with that neuroception, we were all feeling it together. And it was really interesting to see. We would feel it amongst ourselves as therapists, and we would feel it with the people who were coming into our office. So in that, the attitude is, I'm buried under a huge load. I cannot get out. It's a helpless feeling. It's a hopeless feeling. I'm alone in my despair. The world is empty, dead, and dark. It's a tough place to be. Now, the reality is, in healthiness, we should actually move up and down the ladder. Those statements are pretty dramatic. It's not always that dramatic, but we should actually move up and down that ladder a few times each day. And we should go all the way up and all the way down. What often happens is people get stuck in a sympathetic dorsal kind of cycle. And I might go more into that in a minute. I have a feeling I'm going way faster than I expected, which is okay, because I always have lots to say about this. So just breaking it down, again, that ventral vagal, the top level of the ladder, that place when your nervous system is feeling safe and connected. That's when our cortex can work its best. What has happened a lot, and what I see a lot, is that becomes really high to get really, let me start that again. That becomes really difficult to get to sometimes when we're under too much stress for too long. We actually lose the ability to get up to that part of the ladder. And an interesting thing that I see a lot, actually, I'm going to go to the next one. An interesting thing that I see a lot are people who get really stuck in sympathetic. I see this, and this is not meant to be sexist whatsoever. I see it more in moms, partly because I see more moms, and partly how the roles work. I see a lot of families who are dealing with big complexities, and more often I get to see moms. I think it's a little more, there are definitely dads who get this too. So sympathetic, again, just to review, is that first response to perceived danger. And that can be social, emotional danger, physical danger, lots of things. It can be too much stuff at work. It's that stress response, right? It's that response that has energy. Our heart rate goes up. We can get jitters. We can just get, tense. It's that all that tension up in here. I know when I'm feeling too much stress because my tongue actually gets sore, because I press it against the top of my mouth I hold. That's how I kind of hold the stress in my system. It's what we know as fight or flight. And it's very reactive. It's a fast reaction to things. It's not, when we're in our sympathetic brain or nervous system, we're not thinking things through. We're reacting automatically as we've reacted before, sometimes as we were taught to react. When I'm stressed and I'm parenting, I sound more like my mom. When I'm calm and I'm parenting, I sound more like myself, because I'm thinking for myself in the situation in the moment. Otherwise, I'm going to sound like what was most familiar to me from the longest time ago. Sympathetic. The easiest way to think about sympathetic is if you think anxiety. Then I'm not talking about the diagnosis of anxiety, and I'm not diagnosing it as anxiety. It's anxiety is that feeling, that anxious feeling, is what I'm talking about. What I often see, and again, I'm going to go with moms, and again, it's more than moms, but what happens for a lot of people when they have a lot of stress, or they have a lot of chaos happening in their lives because of the people that they're looking after, in some of the families that I'm seeing where things keep going wrong, there keep being problems, is moms get stuck in this sympathetic place, because they feel like if I turn it off, I'm going to drop a ball and something bad's going to happen. It even gets to be a play. There even gets to be kind of a feeling of superstitious. If I'm not worried, something's going to go wrong. And that's what gets us stuck and not able to get to that safe place. I've had situations where I've been with a client and their kids are safe and we're in a safe place, and they have not been able to let go of, but if I let myself feel safe, something's going to go wrong. That's just the way their system is talking to them. And so that's when it's really important. The reality is, when we're safe and we're not feeling safe, that's when there's a problem. When our system is meant to, it is not a bad thing at all to have a sympathetic reaction. It is not bad to feel stressed, because we have stress in our life. It's when the stress is gone, but we're still feeling stressed, that there's a problem. Because when the stress is gone, we need to feel some relief. We need to be able to move up that ladder back into that place of safety. So if we stay in sympathetic for too long, the thing that will happen is our body will start to shut down. And we'll head into dorsal vagal. Now, what I also see is people who will fight dorsal vagal. Dorsal vagal has its purpose too. It's trying to protect us. The dorsal vagal response is a collapse response of, it's too much, I have to shut down. It's the response. Now, if there's a really sudden life-threatening event and someone shuts down, you don't feel pain. It protects your brain. It protects you in numerous ways. It is a protective response. When we're feeling stressed for too long, it protects us because it shuts us down and stops us and tries to help us recover. Because we've depleted ourselves. We haven't. I mean, I don't want to. There's not really a blame thing. It's what we've learned how to do, and our society kind of encourages it. And the energy from sympathetic is kind of tricky because we like having that energy. But what happens is eventually we will shut down. We'll go into dorsal vagal. And dorsal vagal is that feeling of overwhelm. Remember, it's the nervous system of the gut. Our brain does not function at all. What I hear from people is their thoughts become foggy. They can't think. It's freeze or faint, but I want to say there's two different freezes. There's the freeze of the deer in the headlights, which is actually a sympathetic freeze because there's energy behind it. You think about a deer in the headlight, it's about a deer in the headlights freezing has the energy to run away. This freeze is the collapse frozen freeze. It's the I can't move freeze. The heart rate is actually lower. We see this in kids who've experienced trauma because they dissociate. Grown-ups too, but I see it more often in kids. And the feeling again that I compare it to, and again, is not diagnosed, but is depression. This is how depression and anxiety are kind of two sides of the same coin. They're just different nervous system stress responses. And depression is that depleted response. If we go to dorsal and we fight it and try to push ourselves back into sympathetic, try to get that energy, what can happen is we get stuck in dorsal for much, much longer. Our system, our body will shut us down when it needs to recover. And this is that piece that I mean, where if we can work with our body and what it's trying to do, we're going to recover faster. We're going to recover better. And I'll give you a funny story that's kind of related to this. Last summer, I'd planned a special trip, and it got shut down because of COVID. And I'd planned another little trip, and it got shut down because of COVID. And I didn't get all my money back from my trips yet. And so I wanted to do something in the summer with our family. So I got a really cheap cottage, and we got there. By the time we got there, I was depleted. I had been holding on, doing therapy with traumatized people through COVID. I was exhausted. I needed the break. I was really looking forward to this. We got to this place that we rented. It was horrible. It was not a nice place at all. And I'm an organizer. I'm the person who kind of makes the plans. And we got to and the lake was lovely, but the place was terrible. And I took it on. I felt terrible. I felt upset with myself. And about 3 days in, I'm at a cottage. It's my holiday, and I'm thinking, I kind of did a little polyvagal check-in and went, wow, my nervous system is super stressed and I'm supposed to be enjoying myself. And so I collapsed. I let myself shut down. And so by shutting down, I mean, I went to bed with a book that someone else had brought. Well, everyone else was at the lake, and I just shut myself down and I read. And I kept thinking, oh, I should get going. And then I thought, no, don't. Everyone's okay. And I really kind of convinced myself to stay shut down. And I felt my nervous system shift. After it took a number of hours. Now, yeah, it took a few hours, and I felt the shift. I felt the energy come back, and I got up and I was able to go out, and I was able to get back to that safe place, right? I moved back up that ladder and got into that safe place again. And it was such a very specific physiological experience. And I know that had I kept fighting it, I would not have recovered, the holiday would have been terrible for me. And I would have gone back to work and collapsed even worse than I had. So I felt like it was a really good lesson for myself of, if I respect what's going on, if I do what my system is telling me it needs to do, it will bounce back better. So here's what I would love for you guys to be able to kind of hold about this polyvagal stuff. One is that piece of your nervous system is really unique to you. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you another story. So my son, who is now 19, loves his way of calming and feeling good is to build models. He spends oodles of time and money building models. And that started when he was little with Lego. And I remember when he was 4, we got him his first Bionicle, if anyone knows what those are, for Christmas. And I was forced to sit down and help him put it together. And for him, it was thrilling. And for me, my nervous system was screaming by the end of it. And my nervous system was, and what my gut was saying is, go into the kitchen and cook. Because for me, so for him, Lego calmed him, stressed me. For me, cooking calms me. So I go to the kitchen and I feel better. I love puttering around in the kitchen and making food. Christmas dinner is a fun thing for me to make. My husband hates cooking, stresses him out like crazy. He loves to vacuum, so he's great at cleaning up. Every time the vacuum cleaner turns on, my nervous system gets stressed. That's childhood stuff for me. I get stressed out when the vacuum cleaner turns on, and I have to talk myself down and kind of what we call self-soothe when I hear that vacuum cleaner go on. So that's kind of just a really interesting way of showing you that for everyone in my family, there are different things that feel good and different things that feel bad, and that's all good. That's fine. And we all have to kind of know those unique things. And I like polyvagal, the activities that I do with people when we do the Deb Dana activities is there's actual kind of maps, and we map out how does my system feel in sympathetic? How does my system feel in dorsal? And how does my system feel up at that top of the ladder in ventral? And then we think about what gets me there. What are the things that get me to? What are the things that stress me out and get me into sympathetic? What are the things that stress me out and get me into dorsal? What are the things that help me move up that ladder from dorsal to sympathetic and sympathetic to ventral? And then in the last thing that we do is what can keep me up there for longer? Because the more we get up to ventral and the longer we can stretch that, the more we create what we call, it's like elasticity in our vagal nerve, and that is actual resilience. So I just kind of move through all of these things in my own different way. But resilience is not surviving something. Resilience is recovering from something. Right? We can get through something, but still be very crippled by it in our nervous system. That's not resilience. That's being hurt. Resilience is the ability to move through something and recover. So recovering is being able to move up the ladder after a stressor. So let's see. Stress, please hear, stress is normal and healthy. The goal of this is not to always be in ventral. You would be very unhealthy if you were always in ventral. We have our nervous system, we need to honor and appreciate that our nervous system works really hard to protect us from many, many things in our lives. But we need to learn what is actually danger. I work with traumatized kids. And what happens when you have early childhood trauma is your nervous system learns to look for danger. It doesn't learn what safety feels like. And so what happens when you only know what danger feels like in your nervous system? I mean, if you think about it, in order for survival, it's way more important to know what danger looks like. But in order to thrive, we need to know what safety looks like. So teaching children how to feel safe is a pretty complicated thing when the first thing that they ever knew was only danger. For us, always learning how to get moments of safety and then to expand those moments of safety, it's the same thing. We can get really stuck in only looking for what's wrong. That's the same concept as what I was calling the parent who's always looking or always holding on to stress just in case something bad goes on. So again, moving up and down that vagal ladder during the day is good. You're going to get to collapse. You're going to get to stress. You're going to hopefully feel good. You need to move all the way through that more than once. Remembering you can't go from dorsal all the way up. You have to go through that sympathetic nervous system to get up to the ventral system, which means you kind of have to have that mobilizing energy. And the thing that we have to be careful of is when we get that mobilizing energy, we don't want to get stuck in worry again, but look up to safety, try to find safety with that energy. Our nervous system wants to keep us safe, and it's going to react to perceived danger in order to protect us. And when we work with our system, like I said with the cottage story, we're going to recover and move up that ladder faster than if we fight our system. So learning things like being, oh, wow, there's something that, mindfulness. Wow, that word was just gone for a second. Learning mindfulness. Mindfulness is about also kind of being aware of what's happening inside of us and how we're reacting and what we're reacting to. That's really great tools. Um, I wanted to also say, how does this apply to parenting? I love this picture. This is my boys and I a few years ago. So remember that concept of neuroception? Neuroception, our kids neurocept as well. They read, how do we feel? We know that as parents. As a parent, oh man, when my kids were little, I ran a daycare in my home, and I could always tell when I was grumpy because they were grumpy. I could read my mood better from their mood than I could from my own mood sometimes. So it's really important. We know that when we're having a bad day, our kids are not going to have a good day because they're going to read that danger from us. They're going to read our bad day as danger for them, and they're going to have a bad day too. So that's a really important piece of maybe being a bit of motivation for getting to know your nervous system a little better and learning how to do things that will help you recover better. That co-regulation thing, here's a really important thing. Our kids need us to teach them co-regulation. The whole concept of attachment for an infant is about, we have this little baby and the baby has a problem and they need us to see their problem and regulate them through and solve the problem and make them feel better. That's co-regulation, right? We need to be okay and help make our kids okay. And they'll learn from that, the world is okay, people love me, I'm okay. And they then learn how to self-regulate through the years. We cannot learn how to self-regulate if we've never co-regulated. That's really important. Why some of the kids I see really struggle, because they did not learn. They did not have grown-ups around that had ever learned self-regulation themselves. They certainly didn't know how to co-regulate their children. And so we have these kids who have a really hard time. And they sometimes go to school and schools say that they need to self-regulate and they want them to have tools for self-regulation. And the reality is they need to have the tools for co-regulation first. If we can be attuned to our kids, we need to be attuned to their nervous system. There's there's a lot of new science coming out. Mona Delahook is one of my favorite people right now, and she has a couple of books. And she talks a lot about behavior is more about nervous system. She talks about polyvagal stuff. She loves this. If we can attune to what our children's nervous systems are doing, we're going to be able to understand their behavior better. Because bad behavior, what we call bad behavior, is so much more about our children's stress response and how they're understanding the world than it is about that. Kids don't want to be bad, they want to be loved. They don't want to get in trouble, they want to be safe. So if they're doing things that are getting them in trouble and they're behaving badly, it's usually because there's something underneath that we're not understanding necessarily. And they're probably not understanding. They have really often, especially when they're younger, they can't tell us what's going on. And when we do work ourselves on our nervous systems, and we can talk about what we're learning about our nervous systems and how we're feeling and when I had Graves' disease, it was great. My older son, I talked to my kids because I was a bit of a freak. I was a walking panic attack. So I would get upset really quickly over just dumb stuff. And so I talked to my kids and I said, you've probably noticed mommy gets really upset quickly. And I said, I've got this thing happening and I can't control it, but I feel my body's stressed all the time. And when I told them that and I would get upset, it was great because they knew what to do. They knew it wasn't about them. And my older son would come up and say, Mommy, have you taken your medicine? But it was great because he wasn't taking it personally. And it gave him an awareness of nervous systems matter and nervous systems create behavior stuff. So, yeah. So I wanted to just, if you're interested in more information, there's lots of Deb Dana videos on YouTube. If you're part of Adopt for Life, we will be running a couple of polyvagal groups. One for we had a grandparent one, but it's full now. We're going to have one for children birth to 13. So parents, sorry, not for the children, for parents of children birth to 13. And that one starts, so I'm going to get Chantel to help me with that. That one starts in November, I think. That one starts in November, and you can get the information off the Adopt for Life website. And then we're going to have one for parents of teens in January. And those are 6-week sessions, small closed groups. So if you're interested, get in soon. If you want to contact me. And this is a book. So I have this one here. This is probably my favorite, really written for anyone, Deb Dana book about your nervous system. So it's really easy to find. I got it off Amazon, and I quite liked it. So if you want to learn more on your own, that's a great way. And again, Deb Dana on YouTube. Stephen Porges, if you really want to dive deep, he's got lots of great stuff as well. So I think I did okay. Timing wise. We can open it up if there's any questions. I would love to hear. If there is anything that wasn't clear or you are wondering more, please ask.
Yeah, so if you want Tanya to go over anything again, we definitely have time. I'm just going to pull up the chat, Tanya, because there were a few just questions and comments along the way. For me, I studied science, so I love all that stuff, like sympathetic system. I'm all into that. So somebody asked, I think this was when you were talking about, I have to find it. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, we were talking about the dorsal vagal, when that's the lower part of the ladder. And the person asked, is this why when my child goes to respite, I literally collapse?
Yes, absolutely. That is exactly why you collapse, because you've been holding yourself in sympathetic, because you have to, because you're parenting and you have to have energy. You have to keep going. And what often happens is a child will go to respite and we think, oh, we've got all these things we want to get done. And then here's a really big kicker is then we feel ashamed that we're not getting stuff done. And shame is a stressor. Sorry. Shame is this really intolerable emotion that stresses us out. If you can understand that your nervous system is saying, hey, you really got to take a break and try to let go of your list and actually shut yourself down, you will actually have the opportunity to recover. And I know that's hard because we all, as parents, have so many things, there's just so much to do. But if there's anything more you can let go of, often when kids go to respite, you probably need to collapse. Your nervous system is screaming at you to stop. Yeah.
Exactly. I was really surprised that when you said that that you go up and down the ladder actually many times a day. Mm-hmm. I thought the ideal would be that you're always kind of hovering near the top of the ladder.
It's interesting.
So unachievable.
Yeah. Well, but it's interesting because I think if you look this stuff up, you'll see there's some people that have problems with this science. And the reason that they're having problems with this science is because it's being taught really badly.
Okay.
And it's being taught that way, that your goal is to always be up in the ventral vagal. And that is not our goal. Mm-hmm. That is actually unhealthy. we all of us have stressors, and that is okay. It's not a problem to feel stress. It's a problem if we're not recovering from it, right? It's a problem if we're getting stuck in it. And if you've
Well,
been stuck in it for a long time, it takes a while to learn how to recover. It's like strengthening a muscle, right? It takes time to strengthen a muscle. It's the same kind of thing. You do little tiny bits of it at a time. If you can get 30 seconds of feeling good before that stress comes over you again, take the 30 seconds and then try to get another 30 seconds. Yeah.
someone also commented, so I think this was when you were talking about like recognizing like when you're stressed or what your body feels like, because like you're saying, everybody's system is unique. And so the response is going to be unique. So this person commented, so when my kids come when my kids come home from school, as soon as the bus arrives, my blood pressure starts to rise and I can feel like the stress in my shoulders. So that, I mean, is an example of recognizing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to recognize it. It's interesting because my colleague who does the groups with me, we were talking one day and she was saying when she hears the school bell, so her son is an adult now, but she said, when I hear the school bell, I can feel my body stress. And I said, that's actually a trauma response, right? That's our amygdala going, wow, every time. So our amygdala is like our alarm system in the very center of our brain. And it holds, it's not really smart, but it holds a lot of information about danger, right? And its job is to look for danger. And if you've had lots of negative experiences, when the kids come home from school, your amygdala is going to start reacting before to get you ready, right? To arm you, to protect you. And so when you have to work against that, it means you have to do extra stuff to at least bring yourself a couple of steps up that ladder and try to remain up the ladder and try to notice safety. Because what we do is our brain is going to look for danger, remember? So we're going to start looking for everything that's going to go wrong when they walk through the door. And if we can consciously go, okay, is there anything going right?
And also they're going to feed off that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. They're going to neuroset that. Oh, we're walking in and mom's grumpy, right?
So let's give her something to be grumpy about.
Exactly.
Someone had a question about whether ADHD, like if there's somebody had a diagnosis of ADHD or anxiety, does that affect how a person uses the ladder or goes up and down the ladder? So simple.
Well, I mean, it basically, those diagnoses are kind of describing what's happening on the ladder in some ways.
Okay.
ADHD means what it can mean is that you just have to, like, let me see. I'm trying to form the idea of ADHD is an interesting one because you can ADHD. If ADHD is true ADHD, it actually means someone is more technically dorsal in their brain. Their nervous system is actually low and underregulated, and their brain and body are trying to upregulate them to make them themselves feel better. That's why we give people with ADHD stimulants, is to actually upregulate their brain because their brain is naturally downregulated.
Okay.
So basically anxiety is just saying you're probably stuck more in sympathetic. So it's saying and the trick is to really dig into what are the things that help you move up that ladder. And for some people, it can be physical. People need very different things. And that's what I love about this is it's personal to you. For some people, going for a really intense walk is going to bring them up the ladder. For some people, going for a really intense walk is going to bring them down the ladder, right? It's for some. In fact, I had a group recently. We talk about, taking a nice deep breath. Sorry, apparently I've been taking too many of those. When you take a nice deep breath, that gives you nice oxygen and it should regulate your brain a little bit. Now, for some people, I'm asthmatic. There's something called square breathing. And I don't know if anyone's heard of square breathing, but it's where Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. That totally panics my brain because of my history with asthma. So where that can calm people down, that makes me go into a panic. So it's really about listening to what is it that gives you some relief. Is it a hot bath, or does that stress you out? Is it a shower, or does that stress you out? Depends on your sensory system. Some people are sensory seekers, so they need really intense stuff, and that actually calms them down. My son is a sensory seeker, so when he does intense things, he feels better. He needs washing the dishes is really stressful for him, and that's one of his jobs. So when he washes the dishes, he listens to really intense music, and he has to be alone in the room. That's how he regulates himself to do this job that he hates doing. Right. So, and that would not relax me. So it's really, I love that piece of, it's really about getting to know what makes me move up that ladder and what makes me move down the ladder. And, trying to do a little more of the up regulating if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm seeing this question sort of come up repeatedly in different various ways. So like, for example, if someone like a parent or a caregiver is in a situation where they seem to live a lot in that sympathetic and then going down, right? Just back and forth and back, and never really getting on the upper part because they're just caught in this sort of like loop, sort of like, where do you even start? Like, is this something,
Yeah. Yeah.
is this
No,
like,
absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, if you can, I mean, as soon as you can, when you get to dorsal, actually sit there. Sit there until you don't feel like you're in dorsal anymore, which is really hard to do. And lots of parents don't have the time or space to do that. So that's super tricky. But if you can get to dorsal and allow yourself to sit in dorsal and have people around you that are looking after you, then when you naturally move out of dorsal, you'll get the energy properly. Then you want to move as quickly as you can to do something that feels good. So dorsal is collapse, relax, stop, recover. Once you get the energy, go do something that feels good, because that's bringing you right up through the ladder. The energy is going through that sympathetic, but we don't want to get stuck. You have to move. So yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way for me to answer that. And remember, you're not going to get, if you've been stuck in that loop, you're not going to be able to get up to ventral for long. You're going to pop into sympathetic again. But even if you can take, 30 seconds, a couple of times a day, and then, kind of increase it slowly, that's the way to do it. And get help with that, because it's very common. It's really normal. It's very normal in our society to get stuck in that. And it's really unhealthy. I mean, and I don't mean to put more pressure on people, but I want to motivate people to try to get help with this, because it is really hard on you. And I also do understand there's a lot of really good reasons. People don't get there for no good reason.
yeah.
Right.
So if a person is in a situation like that, or not even like that, but maybe is just even struggling, trying to figure out what is that thing that helps me self-regulate, or what is that, when you like, should that person see a therapist, like, or someone to talk, just really kind of coach them through, or is it really just sitting within yourself and kind of just really reflecting and just trying like things?
Well, I think, again, I would Deb Dana, like, I think books like this she's got some great tools. There are some very specific tools. There are some things that work with almost every nervous system. I'm drinking a cold glass of water. Chantal was laughing before because I said it's ice water. And I said, because it regulates cold. In fact, let me give you some tricks for your kids, because these are really good.
That's what the people want.
Yes, people always want that. And of course. So some tricks for your kids: cold face cloth on their face, cold drink of water. No words, as few words as possible, because words require the cortex. So the cortex isn't functioning. If you ask it to function, it's going to be stressful. No words. Cold face cloth, that will help. Cold cloth around the neck, that will help. Cold glass of water, piece of gum.
These will work for the grown-ups too, right?
They will absolutely work for the growth. I was telling Chantel when I did, I don't know, it was a different training I did. I was doing a training and they showed on in the training this guy that wore like a heart monitor, so you could see his heart rate, and he put his face in completely, held his breath and submerged his face in ice water, and you could see his heart rate go down 20 beats a second. No, minute. 20 beats a second would be, sorry. Anyway, went down 20 beats a minute. It was really quite dramatic. And if you think about that, that's like, it's like a fast movie. If you can slow down your heart, you're going to move up that ladder. It's your vagal nerve. There's all sorts of cool tricks, like, yeah, chewing gum, any activity that's got rhythm. So biking, walking, horseback riding, dancing, chewing gum, rocking in a rocking chair, anything that's rhythmic and has movement, those are regulating for most people. For a lot of people, something called proprioception, so pressure, so hugs, that's why weighted blankets are good. Those are nice things that can help your nervous system. Putting weight here, taking your tongue off the roof of your mouth if you're me. Chewing gum is good. Chewing gum is a lovely one with kids. I always have lots of gum in my office because kids love it. And we've got this nice big joint here that's really close to our brain. So if we're chewing gum, you can see people quite quickly regulate. I have stuff called thinking putty. So why therapists and teachers have some of these things. Thinking putty is this really hard putty that people can kind of play with, and I'll play with it with them because then we're co-regulating, and that pressure on all of the joints in your hand, and it's fun. But I think back. If you don't remember, think back in your life. What has felt good? What has made me feel good? Sitting by water, walking through trees. Sorry, pardon me. But again, and music is brilliant. Everyone has music that can help them. I have a certain 2 or 3 songs that if I put them on and I sit there with them, they will help clear my head and help me feel better.
That's awesome. So I'm just putting in the chat because Tanya, you mentioned it right at the end of your presentation, the support group. So if you are part of the Adopt for Life community, those private support groups that Tanya mentioned for parents and caregivers raising children 12 and under, and then there's a separate one for raising teens. And like you said, there was one for grandparents, but that one is now full because each of these groups has a maximum of 12 participants. They do fill up fast. So if you are interested, I would just check the link in the chat and register. Sorry, were you saying something? Did I cut you off?
Nope.
Okay. We're almost, I'm just gonna check for questions and
put up that book again. Just a second.
Yeah.
There. Sorry. That asthma thing.
Okay. Okay, someone asked about, so you can come back to our Adopt for Life Facebook page anytime to rewatch this Facebook Live. It's going to live in our videos. It will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel by the end of the week. So if you have people in your life that are not on Facebook and you think should watch this, which really should be everybody, then you can send the link to YouTube. Does the team link have a sign up? I did just put it, let me just double check, and sometimes it takes a moment to load, but it should be there. I'll go back and double check to make sure. And then the names of the, okay, so, and what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll put the names of the books and the authors, but one is up on the screen right now. Dana Anchored, and
she has quite a few books.
Yeah,
I just find this one, I mean, depending on how sort of sciencey you can see, I mean, I think all of them are on Amazon, but this is, and so Stephen Porges, Dr. Porges also has a number of books. This one I find just is kind of the nicest, most user-friendly of all of the books that I've seen so far. This is one that you could pick up and kind of do your own thing if you can't get to a therapist. You can kind of learn a lot for yourself just with this book.
Okay, I just posted the one for teens. So for those people that were looking, it's the link is live there now. So I think we're going to wrap things up here. I know if you still have questions or you watch this on replay and you have questions, you can always send your questions to us through Messenger. You can get in touch with us at our info@adoptforlife.com email address, or get in touch through the website. We're happy to hear from you and happy to answer your questions and happy to continue this conversation. I'm sure, as you can see, Tanya loves talking about this.
I do.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and personal stories with us tonight. It's really appreciated. And I think it was really beneficial for our community. And I can tell there's so many questions that could easily be part two.
Take care, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.